All right, so in this video, I'm going to be taking a look back at the Shane Gillis SNL situation. If you remember this, in 2019, Shane got the gig at SNL, and then I think just a day or two later, some reporter decided to look into him and try to find any controversial stuff he said in the past, and they got him canceled, and he got fired from SNL just a couple days later. But now looking back on it, in terms of his career, that was probably one of the best things to happen to him, which is hilarious because obviously him getting fired from SNL is what the people trying to cancel him wanted. That was supposed to be his punishment. But in reality, I think the real punishment would have been if SNL kept him and he was just stuck working there. It sounded like he didn't even really want the job that much.
My agents and all those people, they were like, do you want to send a packet in for SNL? And I was like, no, I'm not going to be a writer. I won't work on that show. And then I guess they saw me at JFL and Comedy Central thing, and they were like, we like him, we want him to audition. He can come straight in to audition. So I went straight to the main stage for the audition. And the whole time leading up to it, I was like, I'm never going to get this. I don't care. I want to do stand-up. I kind of hated SNL at that point because every sketch was like, you know what it is.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I'll never fit in there. And then they kept me there for an extra hour by myself. And I was just sitting there like, fuck, I got this. I'm going to be on it. I can't believe I got this. I wasn't even excited. I was just like, this is wild. This is f***ing nuts. And then I go in and meet with Lauren, and he's the man. He's a nice guy.
But obviously he took the job. I mean, you pretty much have to. If you're a struggling comedian, he said he's run out of money. He didn't have that much going on. That's a big break, even though clearly it's not something he dreamed of doing. Well, maybe at one point, I'm sure he did, but it sounds like he's not as big of a fan of it as he used to be. And he probably thought the show was going downhill. And I'm sure he's aware the show doesn't produce as many stars as it used to. And it just sounds like he would much rather do his own thing, which ended up happening because he caught another big break, even though I'm sure at the time it sucked. But him getting canceled was probably one of the best things to happen in that situation. So if you're not familiar with what happened, I think it was the day it was announced that Shane was going to be a new cast member. Somebody on Twitter, some journalists, decided to try to dig up some videos of him being offensive, and they found some of him talking about Asian people, saying some derogatory names for Asian people. And it was also really bad timing because when SNL announced that they're hiring Shane Gillis, they also announced they're hiring two other people, and one of them was going to be the first Asian cast member on SNL. So the timing was really bad here, and this turned into a huge news story, and Shane had this to say about it. He said, "I'm a comedian who pushes boundaries. I sometimes miss. If you go through my 10 years of comedy, most of it is bad. You're going to find a lot of bad misses. I'm happy to apologize to anyone who's actually been offended by what I said. My intention is never to hurt anybody, but I'm trying to be the best comedian I can be, and sometimes that requires risks." So then there's a lot of pressure on SNL. People weren't happy with this. They still wanted him fired. And then Lauren invited Shane into his office, and I'll let Shane describe it here.
It was funny. This is funny. I went into Lauren Michaels' office, and he was talking, and I was convinced I was getting fired. I knew I was getting fired. Because if they didn't get me on that, there's so much more. So much worse. And so he was talking to me, and he was like, no, we think we can. He's like, if we just get you to the first episode, people will see you're not a piece of shit person.
Right.
Just talk. And I was like, whatever, I'll do. If I get fired here, whatever, I'll just go do Joe Rogan next week, and I'll be fine. Anyway, I thought that was funny. No?
What?
I was like, I literally.
Is that what you thought?
I literally thought that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I thought it would be funny.
Well, it could have been funny.
Yeah.
I was booked up, though.
No, it's fine. It was just funny to truly. That was a conversation I actually had.
Really?
In Lauren Michaels' office in the middle of that.
And it sounds like Lauren Michaels really liked Shane. He really wanted to see him on the show. He wanted to work through it, but I guess outside pressure got to him and he had to fire him, which made even more news. So this was a national news story for a week, and it obviously got him a lot of attention, way more than he got for just being announced as an SNL cast member. And it sounds like he pretty much blew up overnight. Before that, he was doing well, but he's pretty much an unknown comedian. And then SNL, and then this, and now everybody knows him, everybody knows his name, and the people canceling him are pretty much just helping his career. You know, they'd also get carried away and they'd find clips that they thought were offensive, and then they'd post them and people would be like, oh, this isn't that bad. And you know, this is pretty funny. Maybe I'll go check out their podcast. So it was only helping him because it's getting his name out there, obviously not in a good way. But if you take like 10 seconds and look into it, you're probably like, oh, wait, this guy is not a racist like this article makes him out to be. And he's actually pretty funny. So he gained a ton of listeners from this.
Since the months after SNL, our listenership probably quadrupled. Yeah, for sure. Because then people heard about it and watched it.
So it's helped the podcast.
Like, this is actually funny.
So it's helped the podcast
tremendously.
Wow.
Yeah. I don't love talking about cancel culture.
Yeah.
It's kind of.
I'm sorry, man.
No. Don't be sorry. I'm kind of. I mean, I did it to myself.
And that's why I think he hates talking about cancel culture, because he's kind of a victim of it, but also at the same time, it helped his career tremendously. Like, he gained a lot of attention from it, and a lot of other comedians started reaching out to him, like Norm Macdonald. He was defending him a lot.
Norm Macdonald went in after SNL and he posted a clip of Gillian Keeves, a genius clip, and he said, "This is better than anything that SNL's done." And he put this up. "You fucking idiots! You lost this guy."
Wow.
Yeah, Norm Macdonald did that.
I don't think Lauren wanted to lose him.
Norm Macdonald's he didn't.
Yeah.
Shane was talking about it. Look, it was out of their hands.
So a lot of comedians are reaching out to him, and I'm sure inviting him on their podcasts. And now he has this story to talk about as well. And of course, Joe Rogan, he hears about him and he eventually has him on the podcast. But I don't think Shane really likes to talk about the story too much because, for example, like with Joe Rogan, Joe loves to talk about how cancel culture is out of control and it's ridiculous that comedians are losing their careers over some minor jokes. But it sounds like Shane realizes that he has nothing really to complain about when it comes to cancel culture. And in the long run, that was probably the best thing to happen to him.
Yeah.
The fun in going after someone is not going after someone and then no consequences. That makes them sad.
Yeah.
What makes them happy is so they can get you fired.
Yeah. And they did. They did a good job.
Yeah, good job, everybody.
And I don't. It's always. Here's what's uncomfortable about it is I don't want to sound like. It's weird for me to rail against cancel culture because I was a victim of it, for lack of a better word. You know what I mean?
Why is it weird for you to rail against?
I don't know. I just it makes me
seems defensive.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd rather just be like, look, if people bring up cancel culture, I'm just like.
Honestly, I really believe it's better for you in the long run. I really do. You're a brilliant comedian, and I think your sketches are incredible, and I think it's better that you not get attached to something that's ultimately corrupting.
And I don't want to be on the other side of it where it's like, I'm a free speech guy. It's like, dude, I don't want to be involved in any of this. I just want to do comedy.
And that was another smart move from him, just sticking to comedy, not trying to be this free speech warrior that's crying about cancel culture every 10 seconds and gets all involved in politics and all that stuff. Like Owen Benjamin, he went down that route. He got canceled, and he would have been just fine. He's still friends with Joe Rogan. He's still part of that whole circle. But he just became obsessed with cancel culture and trying to own SJWs and trying to trigger them and all that stuff. So he's always trying to post the most offensive things. And eventually Joe had to talk to him about it, and he's like, dude, you gotta take it easy on Twitter. Like, why are you saying the N-word every 10 seconds? It's not necessary. And Owen wasn't too happy about that. He felt like Joe was trying to cancel him and was against him. And then he just left that whole group and does his own thing. And he was a good comedian. He had a good thing going, but it got to the point where it was just not about the comedy anymore. And that's where Shane's doing it right. You know, he's still just trying to be a comedian. He's not getting all into the culture war and all that kind of stuff. And when he was fired from SNL, he was already funny enough and a good enough comedian to actually get his own thing going. So he was able to capitalize on all that attention, and he didn't just become known as the guy who got canceled and fired from SNL.
Like when
Do
people,
you feel like it'll start to just suddenly that's who you'll always be then?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
I'm confident I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm confident I'm good enough at stand-up that I'm not going to be.
Then if you know that about yourself, then you're going to be fine.
Yeah, I am fine. I'm not worried about that. I never really was. I never was like, this is gonna. It'll always be part of my story. That's how I was introduced into the comedy world.
Yeah.
And pretty much everybody in the comedy world was on his side. I don't think anybody really cared that much. Like Bobby Lee, he defended him, and they talked about it a little bit when Shane went on his podcast. And Bobby Lee also brings up how it's helped his career. I think that's what he's trying to get at the end here.
Did you lose any Asian friends?
No, I don't have any Asian friends.
Never had
No.
Yeah.
Everybody, no one cared.
Yeah, the comic.
Literally no one cared.
Yeah.
In real life, no one cared.
It's so strange.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure, don't get me wrong, I'm sure there were a lot of people that
yeah.
did bother them, of course. And again, I also understood why they fired me. It's not like when I found out I was like, "What? How dare they?" I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, makes sense."
Yeah.
Makes sense. Here's a video of me using a slur. It makes sense.
Yeah, but
So-
but in many ways though, and you don't have to answer this if you want to, but it kind of did something different for your career.
Definitely.
In the sense that I feel like when people say your name, it's like a legit comedy entity. You know what I mean? Not just, somebody that's going to be here one day, gone the
corporate,
next.
yeah.
But somebody that's like legit, like when I think of your name, I think of Andrew Schultz, Chris DeStefano, guys that I'm
Yeah.
I don't know if you're friends with those guys.
I am.
Mark Normand, you know what I mean? Those types of guys.
Yeah, so this ended up completely backfiring on the people trying to cancel him. It's hilarious. These people really thought they're doing something by getting him fired. But now, 4 years later, this guy's one of the biggest comedians in the world. He has one of the top podcasts, I think maybe #1 on Patreon. And he started his own sketch show that's really successful. So I think it's safe to say he's probably better without SNL. I mean, he probably looks back at that whole situation and is like, that really couldn't have gone any better. It sucks to get some hate comments and all that stuff, but that worked out perfectly. It just shot me right to the top. And now it sounds like he's doing exactly what he wants to do. I'm sure he enjoys it much more than he would enjoy working at SNL. And he gets to do his own thing. He doesn't have to listen to anybody. I'm sure he's making a lot more money than he'd be making at SNL. And he has more opportunities. Things just worked out perfectly for him. The real loser here is SNL. I mean, those people, they completely botched this whole situation. And it just sounds like they did not know what they got themselves into. I think right when they hired him, they should have been like, all right, we don't care if people try to cancel him. We're sticking with him. To hire him and then fire him just a few days later or a week later is ridiculous. And there's no winning there because even if you fire him, people are going to be like, well, you already hired the guy. Didn't you know he was an edgy comedian? You should have looked into him a little bit. So people aren't going to be happy either way. And then it must suck for the people at SNL that wanted him on the show, that thought he was talented, like Lorne Michaels. I'm sure he sees Shane now and sees how successful he is and he's happy for him. But also he's probably like, oh man, what could have happened if he was on SNL? And it's hilarious because they helped his career out a lot. Like they're one of the main reasons why he's so successful right now. But they didn't benefit from it at all, and they only took an L from the situation, and that was like the nail in the coffin for them. But for Shane, on the other hand, he's probably just thinking, well, things couldn't have gone much better than that. That worked out perfectly. So cancel culture has been pretty good to him. I think this is one of the moments where you're like, all right, things are going to start to turn the other way now. Like, clearly they've gone too far with this. Like, cancel culture has gotten to the point where canceling somebody turned into making them one of the most famous comedians alive. So I think it's time that these people start to rethink their strategy. But let me know what you guys think about it all down in the comments. And then make sure you check out my Patreon account if you like videos like this. I post at least once a week. I think there's already around 25 videos on there. And I actually just posted another video about Shane Gillis on there a couple weeks ago. I talked about the basketball game when him and Matt beat Big J. Okerson and Luis J. Gomez so badly that it almost destroyed their friendship and it turned into all this controversy and drama. So if you want to hear about that, or the downfall of Milo Yiannopoulos, or the degeneracy of Ari Shaffir, or the Kramer meltdown at the Laugh Factory, there are a bunch of other videos on there. So make sure you check out the Patreon. I'll put a link in the description. And that's about it for this video. Thanks for watching. Make sure you hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and I'll catch you at the next video.